I want to share today a second-hand anecdote that was told to me by a colleague, student in medical school in Mexico. We are going to go to the place called Chiapas in the southeast region of Mexico. But first, let me tell you about the Marist Brothers. The brothers are actually secular individuals. They are not ordained, but they consecrate their lives to the church. And most importantly, they make vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So they are not like a monk, they are really laymen, but they serve the church. And the particular Marist Brothers are named after the Virgin Mary. Was funded in 1817. And the most important thing I want to point out to you is their purpose. So when they were funded, the purpose was to educate neglected people. And their goal was to build schools for the underprivileged so that they could learn to become good Christians and good people. In the over 100 years of existence, the Marists have actually evolved in serving a lot of privileged populations. And the map from 2016, where the brothers are, this is from Wikipedia, brings us to Chiapas in Mexico City, where they do serve the population. In Chiapas, Mexico, there's indigenous peoples called Lacandones. The Lacandones are descendant from the Mayas, and they inhabit the um, the rainforest in Chiapas. They do have a language that is related to the Maya Yucateco. It's not Spanish, although they do speak Spanish. They have actually learned to trade, and they do communicate very actively with the world outside Chiapas. So this story brings us to a time when one of the Lacandones was very sick. And the elders in the town decided when the Marist brothers were coming to visit, they would let them know there's a very sick Lacandon Indian. Sure enough, the brothers Maristas actually came. They saw the patient. They did bring medical students. They did bring residents in medicine on visits, and they did do a lot of travel with medications and vaccines. But this particular individual was beyond the treatment that the local doctors could do, or the doctors that the Marist brothers brought. So what the brothers decided was to actually bring the patient to Mexico City so that the patient could be seen at the National Hospital in Mexico. So here they go in a very long way in a bus. They're traveling through mountain territory. They also travel through different areas of vegetation, finally crossing through some villages, ending up in one of the most populated cities in the world, Mexico City, with the two Lacandones, the sick person and the elder Lacandon that was accompanying the sick patient. So here I try to depict the Marista, the brother Marista, who came with the two individuals, the one who is sick. I'm trying to put some little wiggly things around the sick person, but one of the um, Lacandones is sick, the other one is the elder accompanying him, and they finally get to the house of the Maristas in Mexico that is relatively close to the National Hospital. So the Maristas make the appointment to go to the Hospital General in Mexico to be seen by doctors. Now, in this hospital, the patient care is free for those who have no other means of payment. And the way that you do appointments, basically, you just find out which is the different service or department where the patient has to go to. And basically, the patients are served first come, first served. So what people often do is they go even before the hospital is opened for business. The hospital's always open for people. They wait in the hallways, and oftentimes they go at 3 or 4 in the morning. They start, making the line to be able to be seen by a doctor whenever the doctor is available. So that's important to understand because it takes us to our story. So Brother Marista is walking uh, the two Lacandones towards the hospital, and the need to go very early in the morning is important so that they can be checked in and put in the waiting list. But the Marista, the brother, could not stay with them all day. So basically, he's bringing them to the hospital. And then he's saying, how are they going to let us know when they're ready to be picked up, since they don't know how to use a phone? And the elder did speak a little bit of Spanish, but their Spanish was not very fluent. So they decided to take time into showing them exactly which were the streets they had to walk and the direction they had to go to find the general hospital in Mexico. And, things like, did you see that red brick building? It's very notable. So just, pay attention to it. Do you see the green fence? It's painted in dark forest green. So you can see that green fence that takes you to the building with the red bricks on the side. So the brother is carefully telling them, and the Lacandones were just, quietly watching and walking with the brother. Next, from the street, across the street, after they pass the red building, there's a building actually with a very bright blue side painted on it. That's not that hard to see. Again, there's across the street a green fence, and just in case you didn't see them, this is where um, our protagonists are, the Marista and the two Lacandones. They had just been walking past the red building on the left, and so the Marista is just pointing at them. What are the kind of things they have to see? And of course, there's cars going in all directions and parked everywhere, and a lot of people walking around the streets. But these buildings are actually very good landmarks because they're very bright colors, where the Maristas could actually tell the Lacandones uh, how to go, which direction to go, and where to turn. So finally they get to the street where there's the green fence. I mean, that green fence, by the way, it belongs to the hospital, to the Hospital General, and it goes around blocks and blocks. It's really a very large center for healthcare. And that's where, the Marista is telling them where the entrance is. And there's a building actually in a corner that's sort of cut like a trapezoidal building, and it has the front of it. It's very clear, notable in orange. It says farmacia. It's a pharmacy. Not surprisingly, a lot of people come out from this general hospital and they can get their drugs in there. So the Marista, just in case you missed them, our three protagonists are here, and he's telling them, you see the pharmacy there, the fence continues, and on the right, I also wanted to make them note, which the Marista did tell them, there was a newsstand with people serving the passersby with different magazines and newspapers, and also sort of chewing gum and some snacks that they could actually buy in this particular stand on the street, which is very visible. So the Marista was just pointing at them how to get there so that they would know when they were discharged from hospital, that they could come back to the time is going by. The brothers are very aware that it takes time to be seen, but they're worried that, the Lacandones is their first visit outside Chiapas. It's a huge city, and they really are worried if the Lacandones may get lost. But sure enough, within some reasonable time, the Lacandones are back. They wave at the Maristas, who are waiting for them anxiously, and they reunite, and they're all happy about the Lacandones not getting lost and being seen by the doctor. So the Lacandones basically give them the feedback on the medications that the Lacandone was given
for their disease. And the good news is that there's treatment. And so the Maristas curiously say, so, did you follow the instructions? Was it clear? Um, how, did you get lost? And the Lacandones smiled and they said, no, no, of course we didn't get lost. And so the Maristas were actually surprised that so quickly they learned to recognize the streets. And the Lacandones said, no, we don't recognize the streets. We followed the trees. So while the Maristas were telling them about the features of the buildings, the features of the streets, what the Lacandones were actually seeing was the different trees, because there's no two trees that are alike in and where they live. The trees are the landmarks that they follow. I always thought this was a wonderful story because it does tell us how we see things differently according to our experience. And if you want to watch this video again, you'll see that I tried to put the shapes of the tree tops in different ways in all of the different slides, so that if you are not a Lacandon, you are probably also seeing the buildings and not seeing the trees.